What is up, guys? My name is Cameron Gallagher from We Are Film, and today we use the URSA Mini Pro G2 to shoot a wedding, so let's get into it. So if you haven't been watching our videos, we did just pick up a URSA Mini Pro G2, and one of the things that I wanted to do was originally I was going to do a review on the URSA Mini Pro G2 as a whole, but I thought, why not, instead of review the camera just as a camera, like, oh, does this, does that, why not talk about it in practical terms? So what we're going to be doing is actually breaking this down into a few different types of filmmaking scenarios. So today we're going to be talking about weddings and using the URSA Mini Pro G2 at a wedding, and then we're also going to be talking about our short film, so using that on the behind the scenes for that, as well as an upcoming music video. So this way you get a little bit of an idea of sort of how different things work and how the URSA Mini Pro G2 can work inside of those. So if you're not subscribed already, be sure to do that right now because those videos are coming very soon, so check that out. So you might be thinking, these guys are crazy. They shot a wedding on an URSA Mini Pro G2. Well, you know what? We're insane. No, I'm just kidding. I was a little bit nervous ahead of time because I was wondering if the URSA Mini Pro G2 was going to really work in a wedding scenario. Obviously, weddings are very fast, run and gun, and it's something I typically used my GH5 in the past for, so the idea of having a true cinema camera and using that was a little bit nerve-wracking, but actually I think I found a lot of ways that this thing can be incredibly useful at a wedding. Now, of course, it's not the perfect camera for a wedding as always, and most cameras aren't, but again, these are some cool things to keep in mind if you're going to be thinking about using the URSA Mini Pro G2 for a wedding. So first, let's talk about the pros. Obviously, the first one being the image quality. The URSA Mini Pro G2 produces incredible images, and of course using that Blackmagic RAW also keeps the file sizes down. And this is one of my biggest concerns going into the day was I going to be able to keep my file sizes low enough but also get the best quality possible? So I actually shot everything during the entire day at Blackmagic RAW 12:1 compression. So most of the times for the beauty stuff, I was shooting in the 4K 2:4:1, kind of what I'm shooting in right now. And then for some of the ceremony or the longer form stuff, I was shooting in 2K. Now the thing about using the 2K is it is cropped in on the sensor, so you can get a little extra noise, which is something to keep in mind depending on when you are using that. So I actually got everything on one 256 gig CFast card. So when it comes to the actual image quality and the file sizes based on that, I was really impressed at how low I could keep it, especially with Blackmagic RAW. Obviously, if you don't want to crop in on the sensor and you're shooting ProRes, that makes a big difference. But again, in my case, just during the ceremony, I cropped in at 2K, which actually gave me a little bit of range too, having that sensor crop in, and then everything else was pretty much that widescreen 4K. Now, obviously, if you're in a different scenario and you're shooting style, you need to keep that in mind. We shoot a lot of things in 60 frames per second. Now, of course, the URSA Mini Pro G2 does 120 frames per second, but in our case, that was just a little bit overkill for a wedding. So obviously, the images look incredible, and that's one of the biggest things about using the URSA Mini Pro G2 at a wedding is you just get that incredible, just the sensor just looks so good. So using that for the wedding obviously can help us boost our business in the future because again, those shots look better. They definitely have more of that cinematic look to it, which of course is just gonna help push the quality of our business. And again, keeping that small file size using Blackmagic RAW, it really helps us kind of wrangle all of the files. This way we're still getting maybe 300, 400, 500 gigs for a wedding instead of like 7, 8, 9 or a terabyte. Now, as things progress, I do plan on shooting more in the actual 4K or the full sensor readout, maybe even in a lower compression, depending on how much we're actually making per wedding. So if it's feasible, I would bump the quality and the resolution up again, so that way we're not cropping in on the sensor, but again, for right now, it works totally fine. So the second big concern of mine was the weight. Obviously, the URSA Mini Pro G2 is a lot bigger than a GH5 or a lot of those other cameras, and I actually ran it with the Easy Rig Mini Max. Now you might be thinking, I don't know if you want to use an Easy Rig on a wedding, but let me tell you what, it actually helped a lot. So I actually ran with the Easy Rig Mini Max and it was honestly awesome. Now I'll probably do a full review on the Easy Rig Mini Max later on, but one of the big concerns was I going to be getting a lot of looks? Was I going to be intrusive or in the way? And actually the complete opposite. What we noticed was because I was using the Easy Rig, which obviously took all of the weight off of the actual URSA Mini Pro G2, it kind of helped us in a more official way. A lot of times people think we're photographers when we're going around with our small cameras, and it's harder for people to kind of know what we're doing. Where when people saw me wearing the Easy Rig, it was very obvious that I was doing video. And we actually, in a weird way, felt that people took us a little more seriously, which is kind of odd. So that was the more like social aspect of it. But when it comes to the actual practicality, the Easy Rig was a huge help. I mean, it allowed me to go handheld. Now, obviously, the Easy Rig is not something that stabilizes your footage at all, so do not think about it as a stabilizer, but it does take all of the weight off your hands and puts it on your back. Now I will say after the whole day, it definitely did start to ache my back a little bit, but way better than using the GH5 hand holding kind of like this, because you get that sort of like pain in the middle of your back. So I was really impressed and I thought it was really awesome. The other thing was too, I actually used during the ceremony the URSA Mini Pro G2 on the monopod, and my monopod that I have it linked down in the description below. It's in the kit page. It was totally fine. I was a little worried that it was going to be a little bit too much. It held the weight no problem, and like during the ceremony when I didn't want to be big and bulky and I want to be able to move a little bit quicker, I just slapped it on the monopod, got them coming down the aisle, and then switched, went to the middle. That was it. It's pretty easy. So the third biggest concern was battery life. So one of the things about the battery life was I wasn't sure how long it was going to be able to last over time. Now, of course, weddings are very long days, and I'm someone who's pretty battery conservative. I like to turn the camera off when I know there's going to be times where I don't have anything to shoot for sure. Some people leave it on. I wouldn't recommend doing that. So I actually picked up the Core HyperCore 98 Slim batteries, and these are V-mount batteries that I use on the URSA Mini Pro G2. Now, I use these for everything, of course, but I was super impressed with the battery life that I got out of this, recording at 4K 60 in most cases. So these batteries give you roughly about 3 hours per battery, depending on the frame rate or codec and stuff like that. And that's very true. That's exactly what you get. I do love the fact that it not only shows the readout on the camera, but also on the back of the battery, so I can easily take a peek. And I have 4 batteries and it lasted me all day. I actually don't even think I tapped into the 4th battery. I'm pretty sure the full 3 got me most of the day. So when it comes to battery life, I was nervous, but the HyperCore Slims definitely were nice. And of course, because they're slim batteries, they are much lighter, which just helped the entire rig be that much lighter. And lastly, one of the other concerns was the noise. Now, while cropped in at 2K, the noise was definitely a little bit more noticeable. So if you are going to be shooting at 2K, just make sure that your ISO is lower. But the nice thing about the URSA Mini Pro G2 is that 1600 ISO is totally usable, especially if you're at 4K or the full sensor readout. So this is the kind of like pro and con, I guess. In most cases, if you're shooting in 4K, so if you have the CFast card space for it, if you're shooting in 4K, 1600 is more than enough. You're totally fine. So you could really do a lot of the dances, things like that, especially if you were to light it. Now on the flip side of that, if you were to be shooting in 2K or some type of sensor cropped, 1600 is probably too high because the noise is going to be a lot bigger in the actual image and it's going to be a lot more intense. So if you're shooting at 2K, I probably wouldn't go to 1600, I'd probably stay at 800, but if you are shooting at 4K or the full sensor readout, you could definitely push it to 1600, no problem. And to be honest with you, that's pretty much better than the GH5 can do. I don't really like to get the GH5 above 1000 ISO, maybe 1250 in most cases. So the fact that the URSA Mini Pro G2 actually did better is just awesome. And again, most times you should be lighting your reception, bringing some type of light, and that just helps immensely. So, I mean, that's a huge thing right there. So overall, I actually really enjoyed shooting a wedding with the URSA Mini Pro G2. I was nervous at first, and of course there are some other things that are a little bit nerve-wracking. Like one thing I wish that their camera did have was some type of proxy workflow, where for instance you could be recording full 4K to the CFast 2.0 cards, or maybe like recording a 1080p version to an SD card. I have the Atomos Shinobi that I'm using for my monitor for most everything, but I've been thinking about maybe switching to one of the recorders, that way I have a backup recording. But I mean, that's like nitpicky. Really in all, it was really a great experience. And again, the quality is just so good, and this is really going to push our company that much further in what we can show, what we can do as a video production company, especially in wedding videos. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, I am very excited about the other 2 videos coming soon, a music video as well as our short film behind the scenes. So our short film actually comes out November 3rd, so stay tuned for that. And then the music video will be sometime in the next few weeks, but we'll have some behind the scenes on both of those, and I'll kind of talk about how the URSA Mini Pro G2 was a super help. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later.